The wind on Nerith Station did not blow, so much as it scraped, dragging microscopic shards of obsidian sand across the execution dais. It was a sound like sandpaper on bone, constant and eroding. Leo stood at the center of the platform, the magnetic cuffs at his wrists, humming with a low, nauseating frequency that made his teeth ache. He did not look at the crowd of Varkani soldiers standing in rigid formation below, nor did he look at the gray, churning sky that hid the void of space beyond. He looked at the firing squad. There were 5 of them. They stood 20 meters away. Leo narrowed his eyes, doing the math that had become his only comfort in the last 48 hours. At 20 meters with standard Varkani pulse rifles, the energy dispersion would be roughly 4 centimeters upon impact. If they aimed for the center of mass, which regulations dictated, the first volley would vaporize his heart and lungs instantly. That was the good outcome. However, the soldier on the far left was favoring his right leg, shifting his weight every 10 seconds. A tired shooter was a sloppy shooter. If that man pulled his trigger a fraction of a second late, or jerked the barrel, the shot might clip the shoulder or the gut. That was the bad outcome. Clean or messy, Leo muttered to himself, the words lost in the abrasive wind. Just make it clean. He was not a hero. He was a medic who had been patching up bodies that had no business being put back together, a tinkerer who understood that biological systems were just wet machinery. He had been captured scavenging parts from a derelict comms relay, dragged here and sentenced to die to make a point. The point being, Earth remnant vermin were not welcome in Varkani space. A hush fell over the assembled troops, a silence heavier than the gravity of the station. Admiral Beatrice had arrived. She walked onto the raised command deck overlooking the dais, with a stride that suggested she owned the ground beneath her boots, and the air everyone else was breathing. Her uniform was a pristine, deep midnight blue, adorned with the silver threading of high command. Her face was struck from marble pale sharp and utterly devoid of warmth. She did not look like a woman who felt the cold, or fear, or mercy. Behind her, slightly to the right, trailed a smaller figure. A girl perhaps 12 or 13 years old in human terms, but with the distinct predatory grace of the wolfkin. Her ears were pointed, tufted with white fur that contrasted with her dark hair, and her eyes were a startling luminous amber. This was Lily, the adopted daughter, the anomaly. Beatrice stepped to the podium. She did not tap the microphone. She simply spoke, and her voice, amplified by the station's speakers, cut through the wind. "Prisoner 479, she announced. Her tone was flat, reading a grocery list of ending lives. "You have been found guilty of trespassing in a restricted military zone, theft of Imperial resources, and espionage against the Varkani fleet. The sentence is death." She paused, looking down at him. There was no gloating in her eyes. It was just business. Leo shivered, not from the cold but from the sheer banality of it. He looked up, squinting against the grit in the air. "At least you are on time," he shouted back. "I hate waiting." The soldiers did not flinch. The executioners raised their rifles in unison. But on the command deck, the wolf girl Lily twitched. Her nose wrinkled, and a short, sharp sound echoed over the audio pickup, a snort. She was amused. Beatrice did not react to the interruption. She raised her hand to give the final command. The world seemed to inhale. The wind held its breath. Then came the scream of metal tearing through air. It was not the sound of the firing squad. It was a high-pitched drilling whine from the high ridges overlooking the square. Leo, conditioned by years of trench warfare on the rim, worlds reacted before his conscious mind could process the threat. He saw the glint of the scope distortion a fraction of a second before the sound arrived. The shot was not meant for him. "Incoming!" Leo roared, throwing his weight against the magnetic field of his cuffs. On the command deck, Beatrice was the target, but she was not the one who moved first. Lily, driven by the genetic imperative of her species, the absolute need to protect the pack leader, blurred into motion. She lunged in front of her mother, a growl ripping from her throat. The sniper had fired a double tap. The first round shattered the podium, sending shrapnel slicing across Beatrice's cheek. The Admiral stumbled back momentarily, blinded by dust and debris. The second round was following the path of the first, aimed perfectly at where Beatrice's heart had been a second ago, space now occupied by the lunging child. Leo did not think. He did not calculate the dispersion of energy or the messy versus clean death. He simply acted. The magnetic cuffs had a flaw. He had noticed it an hour ago. If you torqued the joints at a 45-degree angle and slammed the dampener against a hard surface, the field disrupted for 2 seconds. He slammed his wrists against the execution pole. The cuffs sparked and died. Leo launched himself off the dais. He was not aiming to tackle the assassin. He was too far away. He was aiming for the line of fire. He vaulted over the railing of the lower deck and threw himself upward, intercepting the trajectory, just as Lily shielded her mother. The impact felt like being kicked in the chest by a mule wearing a heated iron shoe. Leo spun in the air, the kinetic force of the grazing shot smashing him into the durasteel floor of the command deck. He landed hard, sliding across the metal, gasping for air that suddenly tasted like copper and ozone. Silence slammed back down onto the square. It was absolute. It was the silence of 1,000 soldiers realizing something impossible had just happened. Leo groaned, rolling onto his side. His left flank was burning. The shot had missed his vitals, but had carved a deep, cauterized furrow along his ribs. He blinked, clearing his vision. Lily was sprawled on the deck, unhurt, but shaking her amber eyes wide. Behind her, Beatrice was already standing. The shock on the Admiral's face lasted for exactly 1 heartbeat, a flicker of the terrified mother before the mask of the Admiral slammed back into place. "Secure the ridge!" Beatrice screamed, her voice cracking with fury. "Take them alive, go!" Troops began to scramble, dropships roaring to life. Beatrice ignored them. She dropped to one knee, her hands hovering over Lily, checking for blood. Finding none, her gaze snapped to Leo. In one fluid motion, she drew her sidearm, a heavy, sleek pulse pistol, and leveled it directly at Leo's forehead. The barrel was steady. Her eyes were not. "Explain," she hissed. "Did you save my child, or was this a performance to delay your death?" Leo coughed, clutching his side. "If I wanted to perform," he wheezed, "I would have picked a script with less pain." "Mom." Lily scrambled up, placing her small hand on Beatrice's gun arm. Her voice was guttural, vibrating with a low growl. "Mom, stop." "He is the enemy, Lily," Beatrice said, though she did not pull the trigger. Lily leaned forward, sniffing the air near Leo. Her nose twitched rapidly. "He smells like fear," she said, her voice sounding oddly young for such a creature. "He smells like old blood and rust. But not lies. Not like the others." Leo managed a pained grin. "Thanks, I guess I need to work on my cologne." Beatrice hesitated. She looked at the man bleeding on her deck, the man she had sentenced to die 30 seconds ago, and then at her daughter. "Something is wrong," Lily whispered. She raised a hand to her neck. Beatrice's eyes widened. "Lily." On the girl's neck, just below the ear, a patch of skin was changing. It was turning a frosted metallic gray. Veins of silver light began to branch out from a central point, pulsing in time with her rapid heartbeat. The air around the girl suddenly grew cold, and a low hum like a tuning fork struck in a quiet room began to emanate from her body. "Dr. Pike!" Beatrice shouted, turning to the retinue of officers cowering near the rear blast doors. "Get over here now!" A thin, balding man in a medical coat scrambled forward, his face pale. Dr. Soren Pike dropped to his knees beside Lily, pulling a scanner from his pocket. He ran it over the silver patch. The scanner whined and sparked. "Impossible," Pike muttered, his hands trembling. "Admiral, this is an ash bloom." "What does that mean?" Beatrice demanded. "It is a resonance seed," Pike stammered. Legend says they come from the Echo Rift. It feeds on bioelectricity. It is trying to sync her nervous system with the rift frequencies. Leo pushed himself up to a sitting position, ignoring the screaming pain in his ribs. He stared at the mark on the girl's neck. He knew that pattern. He had seen it 10 years ago deep in a classified sub-basement of an Earth remnant facility, a project that had been shut down because the test subjects kept screaming until their brains liquefied. "It is not just sinking," Leo blurted out. Beatrice's gun snapped back to him. "Speak." "It is rooting," Leo said, his voice hard. "It is an artificial parasite designed to mimic the rift. If you do not stop the resonance, the feedback loop will hit her brainstem in less than 20 minutes. She will not just die, Admiral. She will burn out from the inside." Pike looked at Leo stunned. "How does a scavenger know about high-level resonance theory?" "I read a lot," Leo lied. He looked Beatrice in the eye. "And I know how to slow it down. Your doctor there looks like he is about to faint. I have handled biocircuitry graphs in the field, with nothing but a hydrospanner and a prayer. I can help her." Beatrice looked at the spreading silver frost on her daughter's skin. Lily's eyes were rolling back, her breathing becoming shallow and ragged. The hum was getting louder. The Admiral made a choice. It was the choice of a mother, not a soldier. "Get him up," Beatrice ordered the guards. "Admiral." Tamsin, the head of security, stepped forward, her weapon raised. She was a block of muscle and scars, looking at Leo as if he were a roach on a dinner plate. "This is a prisoner. You cannot let him touch the girl." "If Lily dies," Beatrice said, her voice dropping to a terrifying whisper, "then everyone on this deck is going to envy the dead. Get him to the medical bay, now." She turned to Leo, leaning in close. The muzzle of her pistol pressed against his forehead, cold and hard. "You are my temporary doctor," she said. "If she lives, we talk. If she dies, I will kill you right there in the operating theater. No trials, no speeches. Do you understand?" "Loud and clear," Leo said. "Now move. She is burning up." The run to the medical bay was a blur of harsh white lights and steel corridors. Leo was flanked by 3 guards with Tamsin breathing down his neck. The security chief had holstered her rifle but kept a heavy sidearm trained on the base of Leo's skull. "One wrong move," Tamsin growled, as they sprinted past a squad of confused technicians. "One twitch and I put a hole in your spine." "I hate working when people are cheering me on with a gun," Leo panted, clutching his side. Fresh blood was soaking through his shirt, but the adrenaline was doing a decent job of masking the pain. "Shut up and run, prisoner," Tamsin barked. They burst into the medical bay. It was a sterile, gleaming cathedral of Varkani science. Floating surgical drones hovered near the ceiling, and the main operating table was a slab of backlit glass. "Put her down gently," Leo ordered. The guards laid Lily onto the table. She was thrashing now, a low, keening wail escaping her lips. The silver frost had spread, covering half her neck and creeping toward her jawline. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees in seconds. Frost began to form on the metal instruments on the trays. "Dr. Pike," Leo snapped, washing his hands in the sterilization field. "I need a frequency dampener and a biolaser set to cauterize, not cut. We need to isolate the bloom before we can extract it." Pike hesitated, looking at Beatrice. The Admiral stood on the other side of the observation glass, her hands pressed against the pane. She looked like a ghost. "Do as he says." Beatrice's voice came over the intercom, distorted by the static the ash bloom was generating. Pike grabbed the tools. "The dampener is experimental," he warned, handing a heavy coil-wrapped device to Leo. "If you set the frequency wrong, you will stop her heart." "Then I better not set it wrong," Leo muttered. He stepped up to the table. Lily's eyes were open, but unseeing, swirling with gray mist. "Hey, kid," Leo whispered, leaning over her. "Stay with me. Do not listen to the noise." He activated the dampener. A high-pitched whine filled the room. He adjusted the dial, watching the biomonitor. He needed to find the counter-resonance, the exact opposite frequency of the ash bloom. It was like picking a lock, but the lock was made of sound, and the door was a little girl's nervous system. 70 hertz. Nothing. 80 hertz. The frost spread faster. "Wrong way!" Pike yelled. "Her heart rate is spiking to 200. Leo gritted his teeth. He remembered the files. The Earth Remnant Project had used a harmonic minor scale. It was music. It was math. He spun the dial to 144 hertz. The hum from Lily's body shrieked, a sound of frustrated metal, and then abruptly cut off. The silver frost stopped spreading. The veins of light dimmed. "Got you," Leo breathed. "The bloom is dormant," Pike said, staring at the monitor in disbelief. "You locked it." "I did not kill it," Leo said, grabbing the biolaser. "I just put it to sleep. Now I need to carve out the anchor point before it wakes up." He worked fast. His hands, usually steady, trembled slightly from his own blood loss, but when the laser touched the skin, he was rock solid. He cut around the central node of the ash bloom, a tiny, crystallized seed embedded in the muscle of her neck. It took 10 minutes. 10 minutes of Tamsin's gun at his back, 10 minutes of Beatrice's eyes, burning a hole through the glass, 10 minutes of Lily's shallow breathing filling the room. Finally, Leo lifted the node out with a pair of forceps. It was a jagged black shard pulsing faintly with a dying light. He dropped it into a containment vial and sealed the lid. Lily let out a long, shuddering breath. Her heart rate stabilized. The frost on her skin melted away into harmless dew. "She is stable," Pike announced, his voice filled with awe. Leo slumped against the table, the adrenaline crash hitting him like a physical blow. He slid down to the floor, clutching his ribs. "Great," he mumbled. "Now can someone stitch me up before I bleed out on your nice clean floor?" Beatrice entered the room a moment later. The airlock hissed shut behind her. She did not look at Leo immediately. She walked to the table, brushing a strand of hair away from Lily's sweating forehead. She stood there for a long time, just breathing, verifying that her daughter was still part of the living world. Then she turned to Leo. He was sitting on the floor, Tamsin still guarding him. Dr. Pike was applying a trauma patch to Leo's side. "You saved her," Beatrice said. It was not a question. "I kept my end of the bargain," Leo said tiredly. "She will need monitoring. The resonance leaves an echo. Nightmares mostly." Beatrice walked over to the counter where the containment vial sat. She picked it up, staring at the black shard inside. "Dr. Pike said this is a weapon, an assassination tool." "It is," Leo said. "Ash bloom. Nasty piece of work. It is designed to look like a random mutation or a reaction to the echo rift. But nature does not build kill switches." Beatrice turned the vial in the light. "The sniper was trying to inject this into me, but they missed." "They missed you," Leo corrected. "But they hit the girl, or maybe." He stopped. "Maybe what?" Beatrice stepped closer. Leo struggled to his feet, pushing Pike's hand away. He walked over to the microscope station where Pike had been analyzing the initial scans. "Doctor," Leo said, "pull up the genetic marker on the ash bloom casing. The biological wrapper." Pike typed in the commands. A double helix appeared on the screen, highlighted in red. "That is impossible," Pike whispered. "What is it?" Beatrice demanded. Leo pointed at the screen. "That is not Earth Remnant Tech, Admiral. The base structure. Sure, that is human design, ancient stuff. But the delivery system, the wrapper that kept it stable until it hit the bloodstream." He looked at Beatrice, his face grim. "That is Varkani sequencing," Leo said. "High-grade military polymer, the kind you only find in one place." Beatrice stared at the screen. Her face went pale, then hard as diamond. "The Fleet Armory." "Someone did not just want you dead," Leo said softly. "Someone wanted you to die by a weapon that looked human, but was made by your own people. They wanted a martyr admiral, and they wanted a war. Beatrice looked at the vial, then at Lily sleeping on the table. The realization settled in the room like a cold fog. The enemy was not out in the void. The enemy was inside the gates. "Tamsin," Beatrice said. Her voice was terrifyingly calm. "Admiral," the security chief straightened up. "Lock down this medical bay. No signals in or out. If anyone tries to enter, you kill them." "Understood," Tamsin said, clicking the safety off her rifle. Beatrice turned back to Leo. The gun was gone from her hand, but her eyes were still dangerous. "You are not going back to the cell, prisoner," she said. "Leo," he said. "My name is Leo." Beatrice paused. She looked at him, really looked at him for the first time. She saw the blood on his shirt, the exhaustion in his eyes, and the defiant set of his jaw. "Leo," she repeated, testing the word. "You are right. The war is inside the house, and it seems you are the only one who knows how to see the ghosts." Leo looked at Lily, then at the Admiral. He thought about the execution dais, the wind, and the calculated probability of death. He realized the odds had not gotten any better. They had just gotten much more complicated. "So," Leo sighed, leaning back against the counter. "What is the plan, Admiral? Because I am pretty sure we are all dead men walking." Beatrice looked at the blast doors. "We survive," she said, "and then we hunt." The heavy durasteel blast doors of the medical bay slammed shut with a finality that vibrated through the floorboards. The sound was not just a mechanical seal. It was the sound of a world shrinking. Inside, the air recyclers hummed with a sterile, anxious rhythm. The lighting had been dimmed to a low amber emergency setting, casting long, sharp shadows that made the medical equipment look like crouching beasts. Admiral Beatrice stood by the primary control console, her hand hovering over the isolation switch. She did not tremble, but the knuckles of her gloved hand were white. She keyed the command. The external comms lines died. The connection to the bridge to the fleet to the rest of the universe was severed. They were now a sealed bubble, drifting in the void. "We are dark," Beatrice said. Her voice was stripped of its usual command resonance, leaving only a cold, hard fact. "No signals in, no signals out. If anyone tries to override the door protocols, the system will treat it as a hostile breach." Tamsin, the security chief, stood by the entrance checking the charge on her pulse rifle for the third time in 5 minutes. She looked at the sealed door, then at the Admiral. "You just blinded the flagship, Admiral. Command is going to panic." "Let them panic," Beatrice replied, turning her back on the door. "Panic makes people predictable. Silence makes them afraid." In the center of the room, on the biobed, the crisis was not political. It was thermal. Lily was freezing. It was not a normal cold. The ash bloom, though dormant, had altered her metabolic baseline. The girl's skin was pale, almost translucent, and frost was forming on her eyelashes. The advanced Varkani thermal blankets draped over her were useless. The sensors on the bed flashed a critical warning in angry red light. Subject temperature dropping. 33 degrees Celsius. 32. Dr. Soren Pike was frantic, his hands flying over the controls of the radiant heater. "It is not working," he stammered, sweat beading on his bald head, despite the chill radiating from the girl. "The heat is external. The ash bloom has reversed her endothermic regulation. She is rejecting ambient heat. She is freezing from the marrow out." Leo stood on the other side of the bed. He had been watching the numbers drop. He looked at the high-tech blankets, then at the girl's shivering form. Her lips were turning blue. The wolfkin biology was resilient, but nothing biological could survive an internal ice age. "Turn off the heaters," Leo said. Pike looked up, scandalized. "Are you insane? She will die in 10 minutes." "The heaters are cooking her skin while her core freezes," Leo snapped. "It is basic thermodynamics mixed with parasitic rejection. The machine heat feels artificial to the parasite, so it fights back. It pushes the cold harder. And you have a better idea, prisoner. Beatrice stepped into the light, her eyes narrowing. She needs organic heat, Leo said. Biofeedback. Something the parasite recognizes as a living system, not a threat. It will not fight a heartbeat. He did not wait for permission. Leo reached down and grabbed the hem of his blood-stained tunic. With a wince of pain from his injured ribs, he pulled the shirt over his head and tossed it onto the floor. Beatrice stiffened. Her eyes widened, scanning the man's torso. It was a map of violence. Leo's chest and back were a tapestry of scars, burn marks from plasma discharges, jagged lines from shrapnel, and the distinct puckered starbursts of old bullet wounds. It was the body of a man who had been broken a dozen times and glued back together with grit. "What do you think you are doing?" Beatrice demanded, her hand drifting toward her sidearm. "Saving your daughter," Leo said. "Unless you want to hop in there, Admiral. But I am guessing your uniform has 12 layers of ballistic weave and takes 5 minutes to unlatch. We do not have 5 minutes." Beatrice froze. The mix of indignation, suspicion, and terrifying logic locked her throat. She stood there, rigid as a statue, as Leo climbed onto the biobed. He kicked the useless thermal blankets aside and lay down next to the shivering girl. He pulled her small, freezing body against his bare chest. The contact was like pressing against a block of dry ice. The cold burned his skin, sending a shock through his system that made his teeth rattle. "God, kid!" Leo hissed through clenched teeth. "You are a popsicle." He wrapped his arms around her, curling his body to encompass as much of her surface area as possible. He controlled his breathing, forcing his heart rate to slow, to become a steady, thumping drumbeat against her ear. The room was silent. Pike stopped typing. Tamsin lowered her weapon slightly. Beatrice stared, her expression unreadable, caught between the urge to shoot the man touching her daughter and the desperate hope that it would work. 1 minute passed. Then 2. The frost on Lily's eyelashes began to melt, turning into tiny droplets of water. The frantic beeping of the biomonitor slowed to a steady rhythm. The color began to creep back into her cheeks, faint, but real. Lily stirred. Her eyelids fluttered open, revealing amber eyes that were groggy and confused. She blinked, looking at the scarred chest she was pressed against, then tilted her head up to look at Leo. "Warm voice," she whispered. Her voice was raspy, like dry leaves. Leo looked down at her. The pain in his ribs was a dull roar, and he was shivering from the heat transfer, but he managed a crooked half-smile. "Yeah, just warm, kid. Do not call me a living blanket. It is undignified." Lily let out a small, weak sound. It was a giggle. The sound seemed to crack the air in the room. Beatrice flinched. It was a human sound, a child's sound echoing in a room built for war and death. The Admiral's shoulders dropped a fraction of an inch. The ice in her eyes melted just enough to show the exhaustion underneath. "She is stabilizing," Dr. Pike announced, his voice filled with relief. "Core temperature is rising. 36 degrees. "Good," Leo muttered, closing his eyes for a second. "Because I think I am getting frostbite on my spleen." Beatrice walked over to the bed. She did not thank him. She did not smile. She simply pulled a chair close to the bedside and sat down, her posture regaining its iron rod straightness. She watched Leo holding her daughter, her gaze dissecting him. "You are comfortable with this," Beatrice said softly. "Too comfortable for a medic." Leo opened one eye. "I was a field medic, Admiral. You keep people warm in the mud while waiting for the medevac that never comes. You learn that dignity is the first thing you throw out when you want to keep someone alive." "You have many scars," she noted. "I have had many bad days." And today, Leo looked at Lily, who had drifted back into a peaceful sleep, her breathing synced with his. Today is still up for debate. The hours dragged on. The medical bay became a capsule of waiting. Tamsin patrolled the perimeter of the room, checking the door seals every 10 minutes. Dr. Pike busied himself at the analysis station, running simulations on the ash bloom data. Beatrice did not leave the chair. She watched the biomonitor, and she watched Leo. The man had not moved despite the awkward angle and the obvious pain in his side. He kept a protective hand on the back of Lily's head, his thumb tracing small, soothing circles whenever she whimpered in her sleep. "You are staring," Leo said without opening his eyes. "I am observing," Beatrice corrected. "There is a difference." "Right. Strategic assessment of the enemy asset." Leo shifted, slightly grimacing. "You guard a sick room harder than you guard a prison block, Admiral. Relax. I am not going to weaponize a thermometer." "You are the anomaly," Beatrice said coolly. "My daughter trusts you. My security chief wants to shoot you, and you possess knowledge of classified weaponry that should not exist. I do not relax around anomalies." "Fair enough," Leo said. "But you might want to blink occasionally. Your eyes are going to dry out." Beatrice looked away, staring at her gloved hands. "Why did you cover her?" she asked suddenly. "On the dais. You calculated the shot. You knew you could dive away." "Reflex," Leo said. "Liar," Beatrice said. "I saw your eyes." "You made a choice," Leo sighed. "Fine. Maybe I just thought the universe had filled its quota of dead kids for the week. Or maybe I figured if she died, you would burn the station down, and I am allergic to fire." Beatrice looked back at him. A ghost of a smile, sharp, dangerous, but genuine, touched the corner of her mouth. "You are annoying, prisoner." "I try." "Do not make me like you," Beatrice said, her voice dropping to a warning tone. "It is inconvenient, and I destroy inconveniences." "Noted," Leo said. "I will try to be more repulsive." "Admiral," Dr. Pike's voice broke the strange intimacy of the moment. He was standing by the holographic microscope, his face pale in the blue light of the display. "I have the sequencing results. You need to see this." Leo carefully extricated himself from Lily, sliding off the bed. He grabbed a fresh medical tunic from a shelf and pulled it on, wincing as he covered his scars. He joined Beatrice at the doctor's station. Pike brought up a rotating 3D model of the ash bloom's genetic code. Segments of the helix were highlighted in angry crimson. "The core resonance signature," Pike explained, pointing to the red sections. "It is definitely Varkani. But look at the encapsulation protocol, the delivery vector." He tapped a key. A layer of digital code peeled away, revealing a second structure underneath. "It was wrapped in a synthetic protein shell," Pike said, "designed to degrade upon injection. The chemical signature of the shell matches Earth remnant bio-waste, specifically the waste products from the engines of their older destroyer-class ships." "A frame job," Leo said, leaning in. "Someone went to a lot of trouble to make this look like a dirty bomb from my side of the line." "Not just a frame job," Tamsin said from the doorway. She had walked over, her face grim. "It is a narrative. If the Admiral's daughter is killed by an Earth remnant bioweapon, right in the middle of a peace summit, what happens?" "Total war," Beatrice said. "The Council would authorize a full scouring of the remnant sectors. No prisoners, no treaties." "And who benefits?" Leo asked. Beatrice's jaw tightened. "Archon Calder Rook. He has been pushing for the final solution doctrine for years. He says the Echo Rift cannot be shared, only conquered." As if summoned by her words, the main console on the wall chimed. A priority override signal was flashing. The system was trying to push a message through the lockdown. "It is a fleet-wide broadcast," Tamsin said, checking her data pad. "It is bypassing our comms block because it is being broadcast on the emergency frequency. Everyone on the station can hear this." Beatrice nodded. "Play it," Tamsin keyed the audio. The voice of Archon Calder Rook filled the room. It was a smooth, baritone voice, the kind of voice that sounded reasonable while ordering a massacre. "Soldiers of the Varkani fleet," the voice boomed. "This is Archon Rook. It is with a heavy heart that I must inform you of a grave betrayal. Admiral Beatrice, compromised by emotional instability and maternal delusion, has sheltered the Earth Remnant terrorist responsible for the attack on Nerith Station. She has locked herself in the medical bay, refusing to surrender the prisoner for justice." Beatrice stood motionless, her face a mask of stone. "Furthermore," Rook continued, "intelligence suggests the Admiral is no longer fit for command. Her judgment is clouded. Therefore, effective immediately command of the fleet is transferred to the Council. Admiral Beatrice is to be considered a hostile combatant until she submits to a mental health evaluation. All units are ordered to secure the medical bay. Use of lethal force is authorized if resistance is encountered." The transmission cut out with a harsh, static hiss. Silence stretched in the room, thin and brittle. "He did not just strip your rank," Leo said quietly. "He just put a bounty on your head." "He wants the girl," Tamsin said, her knuckles cracking as she gripped her rifle. "He knows the ash bloom is in her. He wants to retrieve the weapon." "We need access to the internal grid," Beatrice said, her mind shifting into tactical mode. "If Rook controls the narrative, we lose the crew. We need to see what he is doing to the station's security protocols." "I can bypass the local lock," Pike offered weakly. "But I am a biologist, not a slicer. I cannot fight military encryption." "I know someone who can," Tamsin said. "I pulled him from the brig before we sealed the doors. I figured we might need a rat to navigate the sewers." Tamsin walked to a storage closet at the back of the bay and kicked the door release. A young man tumbled out, blinking in the sudden light. He was wearing a grease-stained prisoner's jumpsuit, his hair a mess of frantic curls. This was Milo, a tech specialist captured from an Earth Remnant salvage ship 3 months ago. "I did not do it," Milo yelped, holding up his hands. "Whatever it is, I was asleep. I have witnesses. Well, the cockroaches in cell block 4, but they are very reliable." "Shut up, Milo," Tamsin said, grabbing him by the collar and dragging him to the console. "Sit. Hack." Milo looked at the screens, then at Beatrice, then at the blood on Leo's shirt. "Oh," he said, swallowing hard. "This looks like the bad kind of party. The kind where everyone dies at the end." "We need to see the security deployment," Beatrice said. "Rook is moving troops. I need to know where." Milo's fingers flew across the holographic keyboard. Okay. I can hack a firewall. I can hack a blast door. But I cannot hack the Admiral's emotional spectrum, so please stop looking at me like you want to laser my face off." "Silence," Beatrice commanded. "Right. Silence. My favorite sound," Milo typed furiously. "Okay, bad news. Rook has mobilized the Vanguard Guard. That is the elite unit. They are setting up a perimeter around this deck. They are not coming to arrest anyone. They are bringing heavy breaching charges." "They are coming to scrub the room," Leo said. Beatrice looked at Lily, still sleeping on the bed. "They want to erase the evidence." Leo felt a sudden sharp pain spike through his left temple. It was a familiar pain, a jagged white line of agony that accompanied his memories of the ash bloom. He stumbled slightly, grabbing the edge of the console. Through the glass of the isolation room, Lily's eyes snapped open. She was not looking at her mother. She was staring directly at Leo. Her nostrils flared. "Noise," she whispered, though the room was quiet. "Loud noise inside." Leo gritted his teeth, forcing the pain down, locking it away in the black box of his mind where he kept the last 10 years. He looked up to find Beatrice watching him again. "Are you fit?" she asked. "I am fine," Leo lied. "Just a headache. Low blood sugar, stress. Pick one." Night cycles simulated on the station meant the lights dimmed further, turning the bay into a cavern of shadows. Tamsin and Milo were working in the corner, trying to loop the security cameras to buy them time. Pike had passed out on a cot in the lab. Beatrice sat in the chair by Lily's bed, her head bowed. She had not slept in 30 hours. The exhaustion was finally cracking her armor. Her shoulders slumped, and for a moment she looked small. Leo walked over quietly. He held a cup of synthetic coffee he had brewed from the dispenser. It smelled like burnt rubber and despair. "Drink," Leo said, holding it out. Beatrice looked up. Her eyes were red-rimmed. She took the cup. "It smells terrible. It is the best we have." She took a sip and grimaced. "Thank you." Leo leaned against the wall, watching Lily. "She is strong. She is fighting it." "She is all I have," Beatrice said. The admission came out before she could stop it. "When I found her on that colony moon, she was feral, starving. She bit me, took a chunk out of my arm." Beatrice unconsciously touched her left forearm. "I should have left her. The regulations required me to leave her. Wolfkin are dangerous." "Why didn't you—" "Because she looked at me," Beatrice said softly. "And she did not look like an enemy. She looked like something that had been left behind. I know what that feels like." Lily shifted in her sleep. Her hand reached out, grasping at the air, until it found the edge of Beatrice's sleeve. She held on tight. "Mom is lonely," Lily mumbled in her sleep, her voice slurring. Beatrice froze. She looked at Leo, embarrassed. Leo did not mock her. He did not smile. He looked at the woman and the child, two creatures from a world that wanted him dead, and he felt something shift in his chest. It was not just the survival instinct anymore. It was something heavier, more dangerous. He realized he did not want to just walk out of here. He wanted them to walk out too. "We are going to get out of this," Leo said. His voice was low, but it held the weight of a promise. "I know how to hurt the ash bloom. If I can hurt it, we can use it." "How?" Beatrice asked. "You said it is a parasite." "It is a receiver," Leo said, the headache throbbing behind his eyes again. "It listens for a signal. If we can get her to the source, to the echo rift, we might be able to reverse the polarity. Instead of the rift controlling her, she controls the rift." Beatrice stood up. "That is a myth. No one controls the rift." "Myths are just science we have not figured out yet," Leo said. Suddenly, a red light began to flash silently on the wall. Tamsin rushed over. "Movement," Tamsin hissed. "Heat signatures in the corridor. 12 of them. Heavy armor." "The inspection team," Milo squeaked. "They are here." Beatrice drew her pistol. She checked the charge. She looked at Lily, then at Leo. "They will demand entrance," Beatrice said. "If I open the door and give them you, they might let me live. They might even let Lily live as a prisoner." Leo looked at the door. He knew the calculation. It was the smart play. Sacrifice the pawn to save the queen. "It is your call, Admiral," Leo said. He did not reach for a weapon. He stood still. Beatrice looked at the blast door. A heavy thud echoed through the metal. Someone was hammering on the outside. "Admiral Beatrice," a voice shouted from the other side. "Open this door by order of the Archon. Surrender the prisoner and the mutant, and you will be granted a merciful court-martial." Beatrice looked at the door. Then she looked at Leo. "Leo," she said. "Yeah. Can you run with those ribs?" Leo grinned. It was a sharp, painful grin. "I can run faster than they can shoot." Beatrice turned to the console. She keyed in a sequence. But it was not the unlock code. It was the ventilation override. "Tamsin," Beatrice ordered. "Blow the rear vents. We are going out through the maintenance shafts." "Yes, ma'am," Tamsin said, grinning savagely. Beatrice turned back to the door. "I am done with orders," she whispered. She fired a single shot into the door control panel. Sparks showered down, fusing the lock mechanism. The door would not open now without a plasma torch. "Grab the girl," Beatrice shouted. "We are leaving." Leo scooped Lily up in his arms, wrapping the blanket tight around her. She woke up, startled, her amber eyes wide. "Where are we going?" Lily asked, clinging to Leo's neck. "We are going for a run, kid," Leo said as the vent cover blasted open with a deafening bang. Beatrice led the way into the dark, steaming tunnel of the maintenance shaft. She did not look back at her command, her station, or her life. She was a traitor now, a fugitive. But as she glanced back and saw Leo carrying her daughter following her into the darkness, she felt lighter than she had in 20 years. The hunt was on. The emergency lighting in the maintenance shaft did not just illuminate the space. It drenched it in the color of fresh arterial blood. Rotating warning strobes cut through the rising steam, creating a disorienting stroboscopic nightmare, where every shadow looked like a crouching soldier, and every burst of pipe hiss sounded like a charging pulse rifle. Leo ran. He ran with a gait that was less of a sprint, and more of a desperate shuffle, favoring his left side, where the cauterized trench along his ribs screamed with every impact of his boots against the metal grating. In his arms, Lily was a dead weight of exhaustion and feverish heat, wrapped in the stolen thermal blanket. She was not sleeping anymore. Her eyes were wide open, staring at things that were not there. Her pupils dilated until the amber irises were thin rings of fire. "Move, prisoner!" Tamsin roared from behind him. The security chief was walking backward, her pulse rifle tucked tight into her shoulder, laying down suppressive fire down the long, throat-like corridor they had just exited. Blue plasma bolts splashed against the far bulkhead, returning fire from the Vanguard Guard units that were breaching the blast doors. "I am moving," Leo shouted back, gasping for air. "But this kid is getting heavier, or gravity is getting stronger." "If you collapse," Tamsin barked, firing a 3-round burst that sent a pursuing drone spiraling into a wall of sparks. "I will drag you by your hair. I am not carrying you." "I will try to fall in a photogenic pose," Leo wheezed. "Something heroic, chin up." Beatrice was at the front, leading them through the labyrinth of the ship's guts. She had stripped off her ceremonial admiral's jacket, discarding the heavy, midnight blue wool, to reveal the tactical undersuit beneath. She moved with a lethal efficiency, checking corners, overriding junction locks with command codes that she knew would be revoked within minutes. "Left," Beatrice ordered, kicking a grate open. "Down to the secondary conduit. It leads to the auxiliary hangars." They scrambled down the ladder. The air here was hotter, smelling of ozone and ionized engine grease. The ship, the Varkani flagship Ethelgard, was waking up to the threat inside its own belly. Klaxons wailed a low, mournful note that vibrated in the teeth. As they hit the floor of the lower level, Lily suddenly stiffened in Leo's arms. She clawed at his shirt, her fingernails sharp. "Stop," she whispered. Her voice was not the raspy whisper of a sick child anymore. It was hollow, resonant. Leo skidded to a halt, nearly colliding with Milo, who was running ahead with a datapad clutched to his chest like a holy book. "What is it?" Leo asked, looking down at her. "Pain." Lily shook her head violently. She pressed her ear against the bulkhead wall, where the thick durasteel vibrated with the ship's drive signature. "They are whispering," Lily said. "Through the metal. The walls are singing." Beatrice stopped and doubled back. "Who is singing, Lily?" "Not people." Lily said, her eyes losing focus. "The gray noise. The rift. It is calling my name. It sounds like it knows me." Dr. Soren Pike, who had been trailing behind, panting like a dying engine, collapsed against a support strut. He looked at the girl, his face draining of blood. "It has started," Pike choked out. Beatrice grabbed the doctor by the lapels of his lab coat and slammed him against the wall. "What has started? You said the ash bloom was dormant." Leo locked it. "He locked the growth," Pike stammered, terrified by the fury in the Admiral's eyes. "But he cannot lock the function. Admiral, you have to understand. The ash bloom isn't just a poison. It is a receiver." Tamsin held the corridor, scanning for targets, but she turned her head to listen. "Explain," Beatrice commanded. "Fast." "The Wolfkin," Pike said, words tumbling out. "Their biology is naturally attuned to the echo rift. That is why they can navigate the anomalies. The ash bloom hijacks that connection. It turns the host into a biological tuning fork, a living key." Leo looked down at the girl in his arms. The silver veins on her neck were not spreading, thanks to his earlier surgery, but they were pulsing with a faint, rhythmic light that matched the strobing emergency lamps. "A key to what?" Leo asked. "To everything," Pike whispered. "Whoever controls the frequency of the ash bloom controls the host. And through the host, they can influence the rift itself. They can rewrite navigation data. They can alter memories of those nearby. They can change loyalty." Beatrice released the doctor, stepping back as if physically struck. The realization hit her with the force of a kinetic round. "Calder Rook," she said, her voice barely audible over the klaxons. "He does not want to kill her. He never wanted to kill her. He wants to possess her," Leo finished the thought. His grip on Lily tightened. "He wants to turn your daughter into a remote control for the entire sector. If he has her, he does not need a fleet. He can just rewrite the reality of anyone who flies through the rift." "He wants to own her," Tamsin spat disgust, warring with discipline on her face. "That sick son of a contact," Milo shrieked, pointing down the corridor. At the far end of the conduit, shadows detached themselves from the darkness. Heavy troopers, the vanguard. They were not firing. They were advancing behind riot shields, moving to contain to capture. They wanted the girl alive. "Go," Beatrice ordered. "To the hangar now." They ran. The sprint became a blur of motion. Leo forced his legs to pump, ignoring the fire in his side. He felt the vibration of heavy boots on the deck behind them. They burst out of the maintenance shaft into the auxiliary hangar bay. It was a cavernous space filled with repair drones and half-dismantled shuttles. The atmospheric force fields were active, holding back the vacuum of space, a shimmering curtain of blue energy that separated safety from instant death. "We need a ship," Leo yelled. "Something fast." "There," Beatrice pointed. Sitting on the launch mag rail was a strike-class interceptor. It was small, angular, and looked like a predatory bird, made of gunmetal and hate. It was a pilot ship built for speed, and nothing else. "Milo!" Beatrice shouted. "Get the clamps off!" Milo scrambled toward the control pedestal. "I am on it. I am on it. Do not shoot the technician." As the group sprinted across the open deck, the door they had just exited exploded inward. The vanguard team poured into the hangar. "Halt!" The lead trooper, amplified voice boomed. "Surrender the asset." Tamsin dropped to one knee behind a crate of fuel cells. "Get to the ship, I will hold them." "No." Beatrice grabbed Tamsin's shoulder and hauled her up. "You are my security chief, not a martyr. You are coming with us. We are a pack. Remember, no one gets left behind." Tamsin looked at the Admiral surprised, then nodded once. "Yes, ma'am." She fired a suppression grenade from her launcher. It detonated in a cloud of blinding white phosphorus and EMP static, buying them precious seconds. They scrambled up the ramp of the interceptor. Leo practically threw Lily into the rear jump seat and strapped her in. Beatrice vaulted into the pilot's seat, her hands flying over the pre-flight sequence. "Milo!" Beatrice screamed. Outside at the console, Milo punched the final key. The magnetic clamps holding the ship disengaged with a heavy clank. "I am coming, wait for me." Milo sprinted across the deck, his arms flailing. Laser fire zipped past him, scorching the floor. He dove onto the ramp just as Tamsin hit the retraction button. The ramp hissed shut, sealing them in. "Go!" Leo yelled from the co-pilot seat. Beatrice slammed the throttle forward. The interceptor's engines did not roar. They shrieked. The ship tore free of the rail, blasting out through the atmospheric shield, and into the black, star-studded void. The force of the acceleration pinned them to their seats. Nareth Station dwindled rapidly behind them, a spinning wheel of lights against the darkness. But the danger was not over. "Radar contact," Leo called out, reading the sensor display that he had barely figured out how to use. 3 bandits. Hunter-killers. They were waiting in patrol orbit. "Hold on," Beatrice said. Her voice was calm now. She was in her element. The cockpit was her world. The ship lurched as Beatrice threw it into a corkscrew dive, dodging a volley of plasma torpedoes. The inertial dampeners whined in protest. "Where are we going?" Tamsin shouted from the back, where she was securing a terrified Milo. "The Rift," Beatrice said. "We are going to the Howling Archive." "That is a myth," Pike cried out, clutching his seat restraints. "It is a ruin, a ghost story." "It is the only place the signal originates from," Leo said, watching the shield integrity drop to 80%. "If Lily is a key, we need to find the lock." Beatrice pulled the ship into a hard burn, aiming for the swirling chaotic nebula that marked the edge of the Echo Rift. The stars here were distorted, stretched like taffy by the gravitational and temporal anomalies. For a moment, the pursuit lagged. The hunter-killers were wary of the rift's edge. It gave them a minute of relative silence. Beatrice engaged the autopilot for a straight burn and turned her chair slightly to look at Leo. "You knew about the key," she said. It was not an accusation, but it was heavy. Leo checked the biomonitor on his wrist, which was linked to Lily's suit. Her heart rate was high, but steady. "I suspected," Leo said. "You knew the tech," Beatrice pressed. "The specific modulation. You knew how to perform surgery on a resonance weapon. You are a field medic, Leo. Field medics know how to patch bullet holes and amputate legs. They do not know advanced resonance bioengineering." Leo looked out the viewport at the swirling colors of the rift. Violet and bruised orange. It looked like a bruise on the face of the universe. "I read things," Leo said, the old lie coming easily. "I have a bad habit of reading things I should not." "Stop lying," Beatrice said. Her voice was softer now. "We are fugitive traders in a stolen ship. Rank does not matter here. Truth matters." Leo looked at her. He saw the fatigue in her eyes, the way her hair had escaped its severe bun, the smudge of grease on her cheek. She was not the enemy admiral anymore. She was just a woman trying to save her kid. "I worked on the prototype," Leo said. The words tasted like ash. 10 years ago, Earth Remnant initiated Project Silence. They wanted to weaponize the Rift. I was a junior researcher. I thought we were building a communication system, something to bridge the gap between species. He laughed, a bitter, dry sound. I was naive. When I found out they were grafting resonance emitters onto prisoners of war to turn them into living bombs, I tried to delete the data. I tried to burn the lab down. "And?" Beatrice asked. "And I failed," Leo said. "They caught me. They wiped my memory of the command codes, stripped my credentials, and threw me into the infantry as a grunt. They figured I would die in the first week. But I didn't." He touched his temple where the headache still lurked. "I forgot the codes," Leo whispered. "But I never forgot the screaming. I never forgot the patterns." Beatrice stared at him. The silence between them stretched, filled only by the hum of the drive. She reached out, her gloved hand hovering for a moment before resting on his arm. It was a tentative touch, awkward but solid. "You tried," she said. "That counts." "Does it?" Leo asked. "I built the gun that is pointed at your daughter's head." "And now you are the shield standing in front of it," Beatrice said. "We are defined by our last choice, not our first." Leo looked at her hand on his arm. He felt a warmth that had nothing to do with the ship's life support. It was a dangerous feeling. It was the feeling of hope. If you two are going to confess your undying love, Milo's voice, piped up from the back, trembling but loud, please wait until I have buckled my safety harness for destiny. I vomit when I get emotional. Lily, huddled in her blanket, let out a small, wet giggle. Beatrice snatched her hand back, glaring over her shoulder. Milo, if you do not silence yourself, I will eject your seat. Understood, Admiral, Milo squeaked. Silence is golden. I am a statue. But Beatrice's lips twitched, a microscopic smile. Contacts closing, Tamsin yelled. They are committing to the rift entry. The ship shuddered as a glancing hit struck the rear deflectors. Hold on, Beatrice shouted, grabbing the yoke. We are going in. She dove the ship into the echo rift. The universe dissolved. The stars vanished, replaced by shifting clouds of impossible geometry. Colors that had no names swirled past the cockpit glass. The ship's sensors screamed, blinded by the interference. Navigate by sight, Leo ordered. Trust your eyes, not the computer. I see it, Beatrice said. Ahead of them, floating in the center of a calm eye, within the chaotic storm, was the Howling Archive. It was a massive structure, ancient and terrifying. It looked like a cathedral carved from a single asteroid of black metal and singing stone. Towers spiraled upward like frozen sound waves. It did not look built. It looked grown. It is beautiful, Lily whispered. She had unbuckled her straps and was standing between the pilot seats, leaning forward. It is a rock, Tamsin muttered. A big, creepy rock. We need to land, Leo said. There, that platform near the base. Beatrice guided the interceptor down. The turbulence was violent. The ship shook as if it were being chewed by a giant beast. Shields are down, Milo yelled. Hull integrity at 60%. Almost there, Beatrice gritted out. With a final bone-jarring thud, they touched down on the landing pad. The engines whined down. We are down, Beatrice exhaled. Suit up. Atmosphere is thin but breathable. They grabbed the breather masks and weapons. Leo helped Lily. She did not need a mask. The air here seemed to energize her. The gray pallor was gone from her skin, replaced by a flushed vitality. They exited the ship. The Howling Archive loomed over them, rising kilometers into the mist. The sound was overwhelming, a low, constant thrum that vibrated in the chest cavity. The door, Tamsin pointed. A massive slab of obsidian blocked the entrance to the main tower. It had no handle, no keypad, no scanner. It is sealed, Pike said, despairing. We came all this way for a wall. It is not a wall, Lily said. She walked forward, stepping away from Leo's protective reach. Lily, wait, Beatrice called out. It is okay, Mom, Lily said. She walked up to the massive stone. She placed her small hand against it. The stone pulsed. A vein of blue light appeared where she touched it. Lily turned to look at Leo. She extended her other hand toward him. Pack, she said firmly. Leo hesitated. He looked at his own hand, scarred and stained with grease. Then he stepped forward and took her hand. The contact was electric. He felt a jolt run up his arm, not of pain, but of connection. He felt known. He felt the sudden, overwhelming sensation of belonging to something larger than himself. Pack, Leo repeated, his voice thick with emotion. Lily turned back to the door. She took a deep breath, her chest expanding. And then she howled. It was not a human sound. It was the sound of a wolf, lonely and proud, calling across the tundra. But amplified by the ash bloom, it was more. It was a sonic key. The silver mark on her neck flared with blinding white light. The Howling Archive answered. A deep, resonant boom echoed from the stone structure. The obsidian slab groaned dust, falling from centuries of sleep. Slowly, majestically, the door split down the middle and began to grind open. Inside, darkness waited. But it was not empty darkness. It was a darkness that breathed. Well, Milo said, breaking the awestruck silence. I guess we rang the doorbell. Beatrice drew her weapon, stepping up beside Leo and Lily. Stay close, she said. We go in together. They stepped across the threshold, into the belly of the ancient machine, as the door rumbled shut behind them, sealing them in with the ghosts of the past. The air inside the howling archive did not smell like stale dust or ancient stone. It smelled like ozone-wet copper and the static charge of a thunderstorm that was about to break. The darkness was not merely an absence of light. It was a physical weight pressing against the skin like heavy velvet. Beatrice took the first step into the corridor. Her boot heel struck the floor, but the sound that followed was not a click. It was a low, resonant cello note that vibrated through the soles of her feet and up her spine. A ripple of bioluminescent violet light spread out from her footprint, flowing along the walls like spilled mercury. The light did not stop. It climbed the architectural ribs of the hallway, igniting intricate carvings that looked less like writing and more like frozen sound waves. "Watch your step," Leo warned, his voice sounding amplified, as if he were speaking into a cavern. "The acoustics here are active. The structure is listening." Milo, trailing behind with his datapad, clutched to his chest, took a hesitant step. A high-pitched chime like a silver bell rang out. He froze. "Okay, so the floor is a musical instrument. That is not terrifying at all. If I trip, do I compose a symphony or just explode?" "Just walk, Milo," Tamsin growled, shoving him gently. Her boots created heavy, percussive thuds like war drums. Lily walked between Leo and Beatrice. She did not make a sound. When her small feet touched the ground, the light did not ripple. It pulsed in a steady heartbeat rhythm, turning a soft, welcoming gold. She looked around with wide eyes, not with fear, but with a strange recognition. "It remembers," Lily whispered. "It is happy we are here." They moved deeper into the structure. The corridor widened the ceiling, vanishing into a gloom filled with drifting motes of light. As they walked, the smoke-like atmosphere began to thicken. It swirled around their legs, rising to their waists, changing color based on who was walking through it. Then the archive began to push back. It started with Beatrice. The violet light around her feet turned a sickly, bruised green. The smoke coalesced, forming shapes. Rigid, angular shapes. Beatrice stopped. Her breath hitched in her throat. The corridor was gone. In its place, she was standing on the bridge of her first command, the Varkani cruiser, Iron Will. The viewport showed a planet burning below, the result of an orbital bombardment she had authorized 15 years ago to stop a plague outbreak. "Admiral," Tamsin's voice came from far away, muffled. Beatrice did not hear her. She saw the faces of her crew. She saw the countdown clock. 3 minutes to impact. She felt the cold metal of the command railing under her gloves. "I had no choice," Beatrice whispered to the empty air. "It was containment. It was necessary." The smoke shifted. A figure appeared in front of her. It was a young lieutenant, a boy she had sent to secure the engine room, knowing he would not come back. He looked at her, his face untouched by the fire, but his eyes were empty holes. "Necessary," the phantom lieutenant mimicked. Beatrice stumbled back, her hand going to her mouth. The Iron Admiral, the woman who had stared down execution squads and enemy fleets without blinking, began to shake. "I made myself into something that does not know how to weep," she gasped, the confession tearing out of her throat. "I buried you all so I could keep standing. I am sorry." Leo saw her stumble. He reached out to grab her shoulder, but as his hand crossed the space between them, the smoke grabbed him too. The burning planet vanished. The darkness turned a blinding, sterile white. Leo was no longer in the archive. He was back in the lab, the Earth remnant subterranean facility. The air smelled of antiseptic and burnt coffee. He looked down at his hands. They were not scarred. They were holding a containment vessel, a glass sphere pulsing with a chaotic, angry gray matter, the proto-form of the ash bloom. Subject 4 is failing, a voice said beside him. Leo turned. He saw a colleague in a white coat. But where the face should have been there was only a blur, a static smudge like a corrupted video file. His memory wipe had taken the names and faces, but it had left the guilt. We need to stabilize the resonance, Leo heard his own voice say, younger, arrogant. Increase the voltage. If they scream, it means the connection is working. Leo dropped to his knees in the archive, clutching his head. The memory was a physical spike in his brain. He saw himself handing the device to a general, another faceless man. He felt the pride he had felt, then the belief that he was saving humanity. I did this, Leo groaned, squeezing his eyes shut. I built the gun. Tamsin was fighting her own ghosts near the wall. She was swinging her rifle at phantoms' images of Beatrice dead, of the fleet in ruins, of herself, standing alone in a graveyard of ships. I will not let them fall, Tamsin roared, firing a shot that passed harmlessly through a smoke vision of a burning flag. Stop! The voice was small, but it cut through the hallucinations like a diamond blade. Lily stepped forward. She grabbed Beatrice's left hand and Leo's right hand. The contact broke the circuit. The burning planet vanished. The sterile lab dissolved. The smoke retreated, becoming just mist again. The lights on the walls dimmed to a neutral blue. Beatrice gasped, sucking in air, as if she had been underwater. She looked at Leo, seeing the horror in his eyes that mirrored her own. Adults are loud inside, Lily said. She looked up at them, her expression serious, devoid of judgment. You carry so many heavy boxes. Why do you not put them down? Leo shuddered, wiping cold sweat from his forehead. Because the boxes are full of ghosts, kid, and ghosts do not like to be put down. Inside the head of an adult is a carnival, Leo added, his voice shaky. And all the rides are broken. Dr. Soren Pike, who had been cowering near a pillar to avoid the smoke, stepped forward tentatively. He adjusted his glasses, his hands trembling. It is a psycho-reactive defense mechanism, Pike explained, his voice echoing in the sudden silence. The archive does not lie, but it chooses the angle. It forces you to look at the things you actively avoid. It feeds on cognitive dissonance. It tortures us with our own failures, Beatrice said, straightening her jacket. Her face was pale, but the steel was returning to her spine. She looked at Tamsin. Report, Chief. Tamsin was leaning against the wall, breathing hard. She looked at Beatrice with a strange expression, a mixture of anger and fierce, painful loyalty. I saw you, Tamsin said, her voice rough. The archive showed me a timeline. You sacrificed the entire Third Fleet. You let them burn to save the girl. Beatrice did not flinch. And I wanted to kill you for it, Tamsin admitted. She gripped her rifle tight. But then I saw the end. You did not run. You stayed on the burning bridge. You took the blame. Tamsin pushed herself off the wall and stood in front of Beatrice. I follow you because you own your sins, Admiral, Tamsin said. Even the ones you have not committed yet. Let us hope we can avoid committing that one, Beatrice said quietly. We are close, Lily said. She pointed down the corridor. The heart is there. It is singing, they continued. The path led them into a massive central chamber. It was a dome of impossible size, the ceiling lost in darkness. In the center of the room, suspended over a bottomless pit by gravity fields, hovered a massive crystal structure. It was jagged black and pulsing with the same silver light that was on Lily's neck. This was the Echo Core. But before they could cross the bridge to reach it, the air in the chamber vibrated. A voice, magnified 1,000 times, boomed from the walls. Admiral Beatrice, Prisoner Leo, you have run out of world. It was Archon, Calder Rook. Beatrice scanned the room. Where is he? Outside, Leo said. He is broadcasting through the structure. He has surrounded the archive. You stand accused of high treason, Calder's voice thundered. You have conspired with the enemy to unleash a biological weapon upon the Varkani people. You have corrupted the innocent. You have sought to use the dark technology of the Rift to enslave our history. He is projecting, Milo squeaked. That is literally exactly what he is doing. He is reading his own to-do list and blaming us. Surrender the girl, Calder continued, and your deaths will be swift. Resist, and I will bury you in this tomb forever. Lily let out a sharp cry. She fell to her knees, clutching her chest. Lily! Beatrice dropped beside her. The ash bloom on Lily's neck was reacting to Calder's voice, or rather to the frequency Calder was broadcasting. The silver veins were expanding, crawling up her jaw, turning her eyes a solid glowing white. He is forcing a sync, Pike yelled, checking his scanner. He is using the fleet's communication array to bombard the archive with a carrier wave. He is trying to activate the ash bloom remotely. Make it stop, Beatrice shouted. I cannot, Pike cried. She is becoming an antenna. If this continues, she will burn out. Lily arched her back, a soundless scream tearing from her mouth. The entire chamber shook. Dust fell from the ceiling. The bridge to the core began to crack. We need to cut the signal, Tamsin yelled. We cannot cut the signal from outside, Leo said. He was staring at the hovering core. His mind was racing, connecting the dots between the memory he had just relived and the reality in front of him. We have to drown it out. How? Beatrice demanded. Leo pointed at the core. That thing. It is not just a storage drive. It is a transmitter. The Howling Archive was built to record the history of a civilization and broadcast it into the Rift so they would never be forgotten. He looked at Beatrice. We record the truth, Leo said. Everything. The assassination attempt. The ash bloom analysis. The video of Calder's troops attacking us. And we use the core to blast it out on every frequency, Varkani, Earth Remnant, civilian, military. Beatrice hesitated. Leo, if you do that, the Varkani fleet is built on order. If you show them that the Archon is a traitor, that the war is a lie, the command structure will shatter. There will be civil war. Ships will fire on ships. Thousands will die. People are already dying, Leo shouted, gesturing to Lily. They are just dying quietly in the dark where you do not have to look at them. He stepped closer to her. The war is already inside your house, Beatrice, Leo said, his voice dropping to an intense whisper. It is sitting in your chair. It is commanding your ships. It is just that no one has turned on the lights yet. The chamber shook again. A piece of the ceiling the size of a tank crashed down into the pit. Beatrice looked at her daughter, who was writhing in pain, the silver light consuming her. She looked at the core. She looked at Leo. She realized that for 20 years she had been fighting to preserve the Varkani fleet. But the fleet was just ships and uniforms. This messy, terrified group of people, this man with the scarred hands, this girl who called her mom, this was what mattered. Beatrice reached out. She did not grab her gun. She did not grab her comms unit. She took Leo's hand. It was not a command. It was not a romantic gesture of a damsel. It was a warrior handing her sword to a partner. Do it, she said. Turn on the lights, Leo nodded. A small, sharp nod. Tamsin, Milo, get the bridge stabilized, Leo ordered. Admiral, you are with me. We need to interface with the core manually. They ran onto the crumbling stone bridge. The gravity field was fluctuating, making every step feel heavy, then light. Lily was carried by Tamsin, her small body glowing like a star. They reached the central platform. The core hummed with a power that made the fillings in their teeth ache. Milo, hook up the datapad, Leo shouted. Transfer all the sensor logs from the escape, the medical scans from Pike, everything. Milo fumbled with the cables, plugging them into the base of the core. I am uploading. It is messy, but it is raw data. It needs a biometric key to send, Pike yelled from the edge of the platform. The archive requires a witness, Lily, Leo said. He took the girl from Tamsin. She was barely conscious. "Lily," Leo whispered, brushing the hair from her sweating forehead. "I need you to howl for me one more time. Can you do that? Not for the pack, for the truth." Lily opened her eyes. They were blinding white, but somewhere deep inside, the amber wolf was still there. She nodded weakly. Leo placed her hand on the core. He placed his own hand over hers. Beatrice placed her hand on top of Leo's. "Now!" Leo shouted. Lily threw her head back. She did not scream. She channeled the agony, the fear, and the love she felt into a single resonance pulse. The ash bloom on her neck flared. The core turned from black to blinding gold. A shockwave of pure information blasted out from the archive. It passed through the stone walls. It passed through the atmosphere. It hit the blockade of ships in orbit. On every screen, in every helmet, on every datapad across the sector, the feed appeared. Not a polished propaganda video, but raw footage. The sniper shot. Pike's analysis of the Varkani poison. Beatrice's desperate run. And finally, Calder's voice recorded just moments ago, threatening to bury them. The signal was so strong it physically shook the ships in orbit. In the chamber, the backlash was immediate. The core discharged its energy. Leo was thrown backward, sliding across the stone. Beatrice caught herself on the railing. Lily collapsed. The light on her neck died instantly. The silver veins turned to black ash and flaked away. She lay still, so very still. "Lily," Beatrice scrambled over, gathering the girl into her arms. "Lily, breathe, breathe!" Leo pulled himself up, his ears ringing, his vision swimming. He crawled toward them. "Is she?" Leo could not finish the word. Lily's chest hitched. Then she took a small, ragged breath. Then another. She was alive. But as Leo looked at her neck where the ash bloom had been, he froze. The silver parasite was gone, but it had left a scar. A burn mark on the skin seared into the flesh by the final discharge of energy. The scar was not random. It formed a perfect, intricate geometric shape. A series of interlocking circles and lines. Leo stared at it. The world seemed to stop. The sounds of the collapsing archive faded away. He knew that symbol. He reached into his pocket, pulling out a small, battered metal lighter he had kept for 10 years, the only object he had from before his memory wipe. He had never known what the scratching on the side meant. He had assumed it was just trench art. He held the lighter next to Lily's neck. The symbol on the lighter and the brand on the girl's neck were identical. "Leo," Beatrice asked, seeing his face. "What is it?" Leo looked up at her. His face was a mask of terrified recognition. "I did not just work on the project," Leo whispered, his voice trembling. "I did not just build the gun." He traced the symbol on the girl's skin. "This is my signature," Leo said. "I designed the core architecture of the ash bloom. I am the architect." Beatrice stared at him. The man who had saved her daughter. The man she had started to trust. "You created this?" she asked. "I thought I was building a bridge," Leo said, tears finally spilling from his eyes. "But I built a cage. And I just put your daughter inside it." Before Beatrice could answer, the ceiling above the core gave way. Sunlight, real sunlight, poured in. "The blockade is breaking," Tamsin shouted, looking at her tactical display. "The ships are turning on each other. Rook's flagship is taking fire." "We have to go," Milo yelled. "This whole place is coming down." Beatrice looked at the symbol on Lily's neck, then at Leo's devastated face. She made a choice. "We move," she ordered. "We talk later. If we live." She hoisted Lily up. Leo stood unsteady, looking at his hands as if they were covered in blood that would never wash off. They ran toward the light, leaving the archive behind, but carrying a truth that was heavier than any stone. The broadcast had split the fleet like glass, but the revelation had split the ground beneath their feet even wider. The interceptor screamed as it tore free from the gravitational pull of the howling archive. The ship was a jagged splinter of metal, hurtling into a sky that had become a wall of fire. Beatrice sat in the pilot's seat, her hands fused to the controls. Through the cockpit canopy, the view was enough to stop a heart. The Varkiani blockade was not a formation, it was a cage. Hundreds of ships' destroyers, frigates, and the massive shark-like dreadnoughts had formed a tightening sphere around the planetoid. Their engines burned with a harsh blue-white intensity, creating a constellation of artificial stars that promised nothing but death. "They are not hailing us," Tamsin shouted from the gunnery station behind the cockpit. "They have locked weapons, all of them. It looks like a firing squad." "It is not a firing squad," Beatrice said, her voice terrifyingly calm. "It is a jaw, and it is closing." In the rear jump seat, Leo was working frantically on the portable interface unit connected to the archive's data core. The crystal hummed with a violent, unstable energy, vibrating against the deck plates. Lily lay next to him, strapped into the crash webbing. She was conscious, but her skin was translucent, the veins beneath shifting like liquid mercury. She looked at Leo, her eyes half-lidded. "If I howl," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the roar of the engines. "Do they stop?" Leo looked up from the console. His face was gray with exhaustion, and a trickle of fresh blood ran from his nose, a symptom of the proximity to the resonating core. He forced a smile. "If you howl now, kid, you will blow out the comms array. Let us save the vocal performance for the encore. If you try it, I will have to submit an application for you to join the diplomatic corps. They love loud noises." Lily managed a weak, dry cough that might have been a laugh. "Diplomacy is boring." "Boring is good," Leo said, his fingers flying across the holographic keys. "I would kill for 5 minutes of boring right now." "We are losing containment on the upload," Milo shrieked from the engineering station. "The interference from the fleet is too thick. It is like trying to shout through a mattress." "Boost the signal gain," Leo ordered. "Route the power from the life support if you have to." "Life support," Milo sputtered. "I am fond of breathing. Breathing is my top 3 favorite hobbies." "Do it, Milo," Tamsin barked. The ship shuddered violently as the first wave of warning shots strafed their hull. The shields flared a brilliant, blinding violet. "They are hurting us," Beatrice noted. "They want us to dock with the flagship. Rook is personally overseeing the capture." As if summoned by her name, the comms panel lit up. It was a priority channel overriding the jamming. The face of Archon Calder Rook appeared on the main display. He looked impeccable, sitting in the command throne of the Ethelgard, the very ship Beatrice had commanded just hours ago. "Admiral," Calder said. His voice was smooth, like oil on a blade. "You have nowhere left to run. The archive is sealed. Your allies are dead or silent. You are holding a stolen artifact and a dangerous mutant." Beatrice did not look at the screen. She kept her eyes on the blockade. "She has a name, Calder." "She is a key," Calder corrected. "And I am the gatekeeper. I am a reasonable man, Beatrice. I do not wish to destroy a hero of the fleet. Give me the girl and the data core. In exchange, you and your pet human can walk away. I will grant you exile on a rim world. You can live out your days in peace." It was a lie. They all knew it was a lie. But it was a lie designed to test her desperation. Beatrice turned to the camera. For the first time, she let the mask of the Admiral slip completely. She did not look like a soldier. She looked like a woman who had found the line she would not cross. "The girl is not a bargaining chip," Beatrice said. Her tone was flat cold and absolute. "And neither is the truth." Calder sighed a theatrical gesture of disappointment. "Then you choose Ash." The transmission cut. "Multiple launches detected," Tamsin yelled. "Vanguard boarding pods." "They are not shooting to kill anymore. They are shooting to disable. They are coming for us." "We need 2 minutes to align the transmitter for the broadcast," Leo shouted. If they breach the hull before we send the data, it is over. We cannot hold them off for 2 minutes, Milo moaned. We have one gun and a pilot with a death wish. We have to try, Beatrice said. She slammed the throttle forward. Hang on. The interceptor dove. Beatrice did not fly away from the fleet. She flew directly into it. She wove the small ship between the massive hulls of the destroyers, using their own bulk as cover against the boarding pods. It was a suicidal dance. On the ground at the base of the archive, where they had stolen the ship, a lone figure stood watching the exhaust trail of the interceptor. Dr. Soren Pike adjusted his glasses. He was holding a fusion grenade he had taken from the interceptor's armory before the takeoff. He had told them he would secure the launch clamp manually. He had lied. He watched the Vanguard dropships descending toward the archive entrance, intent on seizing the facility. I spent my whole life watching, Pike whispered to himself. Watching the experiments, watching the pain, watching the silence. He walked to the center of the landing pad directly in the path of the incoming troops. He pulled the pin. Not today, Pike said. The explosion was small compared to the vastness of the blockade, but it collapsed the entrance to the howling archive, burying the secrets and the pursuers under 1,000,000 tons of singing rock. Up in the interceptor, the shock wave registered on the sensors. Dr. Pike, Tamsin whispered, staring at the reading. He collapsed the tunnel. He bought us time. Beatrice's jaw tightened. Don't waste it. Leo is the signal ready. Aligning now, Leo yelled. I need you to keep us steady for 10 seconds. I have to sync the core frequency with the ship's array. Steady is a problem. Beatrice gritted out as a boarding pod clamped onto their starboard wing. The screech of metal tearing filled the cabin. They are cutting through! Tamsin spun her chair, leveling her rifle at the airlock hatch. Milo, get behind me! 10 seconds, Leo screamed. He keyed the final sequence. The boarding pod blew the hatch. Smoke and sparks filled the rear of the cockpit. Armored figures Vanguard elites poured in. Tamsin opened fire. Blue plasma bolts illuminated the smoke. 5 seconds! A Vanguard trooper lunged at Leo. Beatrice released the controls spinning in her seat to fire her sidearm. The shot took the trooper in the throat, knocking him back. 3, 2, 1. Leo slammed his hand down on the enter key. Broadcasting. The data core pulsed. A beam of pure information, encrypted with the undeniable resonance signature of the archive, blasted out from the interceptor. It hit the flagship, bounced off the relay satellites, and flooded the system. It was not just a video. It was an immersion. Every screen in the fleet went black, then flared with light. Every pilot, every gunner, every captain saw the truth. They saw the medical scans of the ash bloom Varkani poison wrapped in remnant casing. They heard the recording of Calder ordering the assassination. They felt through the resonance data the fear of a child and the cold ambition of a tyrant. The firing stopped. For 5 heartbeats, the space around Nareth Station was silent. Then, the glass shattered. This is the Varkani destroyer Ironclad, a voice crackled over the general channel. We are disengaging from the blockade. We will not fire on the Admiral. This is Vanguard Leader 7, another voice cut in angry and confused. Lies. It is a trick. Maintain formation. You saw the data, a third captain yelled. He poisoned a child. He tried to start a war for power. The blockade dissolved into chaos. Ships turned their turrets. Frigates rammed into destroyers. The monolithic discipline of the Varkani fleet fractured into 1,000 shards of individual morality. It is working, Milo whispered, peeking out from behind his seat. They are fighting each other. Not all of them, Beatrice said. She pointed out the viewport. The flagship, the Ethelgard, was not turning. It was accelerating. It was coming straight for them. Rook is not stopping, Beatrice said. He is going to ram us. He does not need the ship, Leo realized, horror dawning on him. He needs the girl. He is going to board us himself. The impact was not a crash. It was a crunch. The massive flagship clipped the tiny interceptor, grappling it with tractor beams and dragging it into its open hangar bay, like a whale swallowing a minnow. The interceptor smashed into the deck of the Ethelgard's hangar, skidding through sparks and debris until it slammed against the far wall. "Out!" Beatrice ordered, unbuckling her harness. "Everybody out! Defensive positions!" They stumbled out of the wrecked ship. They were in the belly of the beast. The hangar was empty of troops. Rook had cleared the deck for this personal duel. At the far end of the hangar, the lift doors opened. Archon Calder Rook walked out. He was not wearing armor. He was wearing his ceremonial robes, now torn and disheveled. He held a heavy disruptor pistol in one hand and a resonance control rod in the other. "You ruined it," Calder said. His voice was not amplified, but in the echoing hangar, it sounded like a judge's gavel. "Order, discipline, fear. You took it all away." "I gave them the truth," Beatrice said, standing tall, her weapon trained on him. Tamsin and Leo flanked her. "Truth is a kaleidoscope," Calder spat. "It changes with the light. I offered stability. I offered a universe where we controlled the rift, where we did not have to be afraid of the unknown." He raised the control rod. It began to hum. Behind Leo, Lily screamed. She fell to the deck, arching her back. The ash bloom scar on her neck flared again, not silver this time, but an angry, violent red. "You think the broadcast stopped me," Calder laughed. "I still have the master frequency. As long as she lives, I can rewrite the minds of everyone on this ship. I can turn this civil war into a crusade." He adjusted the rod. Lily's scream turned into a gurgle. She was suffocating her own biology, turning against her. "Let her go!" Leo roared, charging forward. Calder fired his pistol. The bolt caught Leo in the shoulder, spinning him around. Leo hit the deck hard. "Leo!" Beatrice screamed. She fired back, but Calder deflected the shots with a personal energy shield. "She is the lock," Calder said, walking toward the writhing girl. "And I am the key. Once I break her mind completely, she will be nothing but a transmitter for my voice." Leo lay on the deck, the smell of burnt flesh filling his nose. The pain was blinding. But through the pain, another sensation was rising. A headache. A splitting white-hot agony in his frontal lobe. He looked at Lily. He saw the red light pulsing on her neck. He saw the geometric scar. And suddenly, the wall in his mind crumbled. The memory did not come back as a trickle. It came as a flood. He was 25. He was in the lab. He was arguing with the general. "We cannot use this for war," Leo was saying. "Project Echo is meant to be a truth engine. It forces the listener to feel the emotional intent of the speaker. If you use it, lies become painful. It will end diplomacy, but it will end deception." "That is why we need it," the general had smiled. "To make the enemy scream when they lie. And then we will make them scream when they tell the truth." Leo had tried to delete the code. He had tried to burn the work. But they had caught him. They had put him in the chair. They had wiped the codes, but they couldn't wipe the neural architecture because he hadn't just written it. He had keyed it to his own biorhythm. Leo gasped, his eyes flying open. He was not just a medic. He was not just a scavenger. He was the architect. He looked at Lily. She was not dying because of the rod. She was dying because the ash bloom was trying to find its master, and it was confused. It was tearing her apart, trying to sync with a signal that was distorted. Lily had not jumped in front of the bullet on the dais because she was a wolf protecting a pack. She had jumped because she had heard him. She had heard the Creator's frequency humming in his blood. "Calder!" Leo shouted. He pushed himself up. His left arm was useless, hanging limp. He stood swaying. Calder stopped, looking down at the broken human. "You have something to say before you die, trash." "You are using the wrong frequency," Leo said. His voice was trembling, but it was loud. What? Calder sneered. The ash bloom, Leo said, stepping closer, ignoring the gun pointed at his chest. You are trying to force it with a brute force override. But it was not designed for force, it was designed for resonance. And you would know why. Because I built it, Leo said. Beatrice froze. Calder froze. I am the architect, Leo said, and I am taking my invention back. Leo closed his eyes. He did not need a computer. He did not need a rod. He reached into the broken, recovered parts of his mind and found the master key. It was a mental image, a specific emotional chord he had encoded into the DNA of the weapon 10 years ago. It was the feeling of regret. Leo projected that feeling. He pushed it out, aiming it not at Calder, but at Lily. Lily gasped. Her eyes snapped open. The red light on her neck turned a soft, blinding blue. Calder's control rod sparked and exploded in his hand. He screamed, dropping the device. What are you doing? I am changing the password, Leo gritted out through clenched teeth. Blood began to pour from his nose and ears. The strain was frying his synapses. He was using his own brain as a wireless router for a military-grade weapon. Stop him! Calder shrieked, fumbling for his dropped pistol. Leo! Beatrice yelled. Leo, what are you doing? I am breaking the loop, Leo shouted back, not looking at her. Beatrice, listen to me. I can unlock her. I can dissolve the ash bloom. But the feedback is going to wipe me. It is going to wipe everything. Beatrice ran to him. She grabbed his good arm. No, there has to be another way. There is no other way, Leo said. He looked at her. His eyes were full of tears, but they were clear. I built a cage. Now I have to be the key. He looked at Lily. The girl was floating slightly off the deck, now suspended in a field of blue energy. She looked at him with terrifying clarity. Pack, Lily whispered. Pack, Leo said softly. He looked at Beatrice. I choose this. I choose to fix it. Beatrice choked on a sob. She looked at the man she had sentenced to death, the man she had hunted, the man she had learned to trust. She placed her hand over his heart. Then do it, she whispered. Save her. Leo nodded. He unleashed the full weight of his mind into the connection. Command dissolve. Lily threw her head back and let out a sound that was not of this world. It was a howl, but it was silent. It was a wave of pure peace that swept through the hangar, through the ship, through the fleet. The blue light on Lily's neck expanded brighter than a sun, and then shattered. The ash bloom disintegrated, turning into harmless dust. The feedback hit Leo like a sledgehammer. He arched his back, a silent scream, frozen on his face. His memories, the lab, the war, the execution. Deus, the way Beatrice looked in the dim light of the medical bay, flashed before his eyes, and then burned white. He collapsed. Calder Rook stood trembling, his weapon forgotten. He looked around. The fighting had stopped. The anger had drained out of the air. He looked at his hands. He felt heavy. The artificial rage he had been pumping into the fleet was gone, replaced by the crushing weight of what he had done. Calder stammered. I only wanted. Beatrice stepped forward. She did not shoot him. She simply walked up to him and struck him across the face with the butt of her pistol. He fell without a fight. You wanted silence, Beatrice said, her voice shaking with rage and grief. Now you have it. Tamsin and Milo rushed forward to secure the fallen Archon. But Beatrice did not watch them. She fell to her knees beside Leo. He was lying on his back. His eyes were open, staring at the ceiling of the hangar. He was breathing, but it was shallow. Lily crawled over to him. She was weak, the skin on her neck raw, and red but free of the parasite. She placed her head on Leo's chest. Leo, Beatrice whispered, taking his hand. Leo blinked. He turned his head slowly. He looked at Beatrice. There was no recognition in his eyes. The intelligence, the wit, the sharp, cynical spark, it was dim, buried under layers of static. Hey, Leo rasped. His voice was slurred. "Hey!" Beatrice cried, squeezing his hand. "You did it! You saved her!" Leo frowned, trying to process the words. He looked at the girl on his chest. He looked at the woman holding his hand. He looked at the chaos of the hangar. "Did I?" Leo asked. He sounded like a child. He tried to sit up but groaned. He looked down at Lily. He touched her hair. "You are cold," Leo mumbled. Lily sobbed, burying her face in his shirt. Leo looked at Beatrice again. A faint flicker of something, a ghost of a memory, or maybe just a feeling that refused to be deleted, crossed his face. He smiled, a crooked, weak smile. "If I forget everything," Leo whispered, reciting the words he had said days ago, though he clearly didn't know why he was saying them. "Remind me I owe you a blanket." His eyes drifted shut. He fell into a deep, coma-like sleep. Beatrice sat there amidst the wreckage of the war, holding the hand of the enemy, who had become her savior. Epilogue. 3 weeks later. The Varkani fleet was still in disarray, but it was a healing disarray. The council had been dissolved. A provisional government formed of both Varkani and Earth Remnant representatives was meeting on Nerith Station. The war was not over, but the shooting had stopped. The lies had been exposed, and without the lies, the hatred had no fuel. On a quiet medical deck of the Ethelgard, Beatrice stood by a window, looking out at the stars. She was not wearing her admiral's uniform. She was wearing simple, civilian clothes. The door opened. Lily walked in. The scar on her neck was fading, turning into a faint white pattern that looked like a star chart. "He is awake," Lily said. Beatrice turned. Her heart hammered against her ribs. They walked into the room. Leo was sitting up in bed. He looked thinner. The sharp edge was gone from his face, replaced by a quiet confusion. He was looking at a datapad, reading the news of the peace talks, with a furrowed brow. He looked up as they entered. He looked at Lily. He smiled, an instinctive warm reaction. Then he looked at Beatrice. There was a long silence. Beatrice held her breath, hoping for a spark, a name, a memory. Leo tilted his head. "The nurse said you are the one who pays the bills." Beatrice's heart broke a little, but she stepped forward. "Something like that." "She says you are an admiral," Leo said. "You look tired for an admiral." "I am retired," Beatrice said softly. "For now." Leo looked at his hands. "I do not know who I am," he admitted. "They tell me my name is Leo. They tell me I did something good. But I don't remember it. It feels like reading a book about someone else." Lily climbed onto the bed and sat next to him. She leaned her head on his shoulder. "It is okay," Lily said. "We remember." Leo looked at the girl, then back at Beatrice. He gestured to the chair beside the bed. "Well," Leo said, his voice finding a trace of that old dry humor, even without the memories to back it up. "If we are going to be friends, you might as well sit down. Unless you are planning to execute me, I have a vague feeling that I used to be worried about that." Beatrice laughed. It was a wet, shaky sound, but it was real. "No executions today," she said, sitting down. "Good," Leo said. He reached out and awkwardly patted Lily's head. Then he looked at Beatrice and, for a second, the fog lifted. He looked at her not as a stranger, but as a puzzle he wanted to solve. "So," Leo said, "tell me a story. Start with the blanket." Beatrice took his hand. It was warm. "Pac remembers," Lily whispered. "Yes," Beatrice said, looking into Leo's eyes. "Pac remembers, and we have plenty of time to remind you." Outside, the Echo Rift swirled no longer a weapon, but a bridge. And inside the room, a new story began, written not in the ink of war, but in the fragile, stubborn language of a promise kept.